I'm Eric Barnes with the Daily Memphian, and welcome to this edition of the Extra Podcast. Today, we're talking about the soon-to-be relaunched 90.1 radio station, WYXR, formerly WUMR. And I'm joined today by Robby Grant, who's executive director of the new nonprofit that is partnered with the U of M and the Daily Memphian to take over the station. How you doing, Robby?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Along with Jared Boyd, who is the program manager for the station, and also segueing from a full-time writer and for the Daily Memphian into this new role, which we'll talk about more. How are you doing, Jared?
Doing well. Thanks for having me as well. Thank you.
And as I mentioned, this is partnered. If people have read articles about what's going on with UMR, it's a partnership, a new nonprofit. Everything's been transferred to it. The Daily Memphian is one of those partners, and I am a board member of the WUMR, or excuse me, the WYXR board. So I should disclose that, along with folks from U of M and from Crosstown. So the first question, I'll go to Robby. Your choice to make it all Elvis all the time. How did that come about?
Well, we figured we needed a little bit more of that, more Elvis. Yeah.
No.
No, I think we're gonna do. We're gonna go a little more deep than that, I think. So.
Why though do you hate jazz?
Love jazz. No, I love jazz. No, we UMR was all jazz, but we're taking it out and covering a lot more genres with our launch. So we're excited and really want to reflect a lot of the personalities with the station. Yeah. So I didn't realize we were it was a comedy podcast. I'm sorry. I got a little off.
I'm only entertaining me, you, and Jared. The comedy podcast for the three of us, and everyone else is confused. But you did let me bring Jared in. I mean, as we were, this whole thing took a year to kind of come together, and Crosstown and U of M reaching out and trying to figure out what was next for the station. And in all due respect to UMR, it was an all jazz station. It was one of the very few all jazz stations in the country. And there was some real, and I think it was really understandable, some real anxiety among people who love jazz, that the jazz station was going away, that all the programming of jazz was going to go away. And that's not the case, right? Jared, your thoughts? I mean, jazz is very much a part, I assume, of why now the rebranded YXR will be.
Sure, we've gotten commitments, some soft and some more firm, from people who are very much interested in programming jazz and talking about jazz. And really, Memphis is a stronghold of jazz. Many people may not know that. Our history. Much of our R&B and soul and blues sort of comes out of this sort of forgotten jazz tradition, and I'm privy to that, and Robby's privy to that, and it's something that we care about, and something that is sort of in the fabric of why this station is important, and it's giving voices to all these different sides and all these different corners and all these different wrinkles in what makes it a cultural hub. And so, just like Cafe Kirk was a big part of making Crosstown a sort of living and breathing cultural hub within that space, as a sort of refurbished and reimagined Sears Crosstown, jazz will have a home at WYXR among a lot of other parts of Memphis's and the Mid-South's music heritage that people may not know much about already.
And that'll come from, well, let me one more thing on jazz. I mean, that anxiety, Robby, I mean, people reach out to you, they reach out to me, Todd Richardson, who's, I can't remember what his title is, but he's basically the president of Crosstown, and he's a board member. I mean, do you feel like the anxiety that people felt has been allayed, or is it just kind of waiting till YXR launches?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. I mean, I think, we're, with COVID, U of M was unable to keep the station up and going. So, I think it's not like we're flipping a switch and one day it's jazz, and the next day it's WYXR. I mean, we, U of M took it down in April with no more, they didn't have sports. They couldn't do live DJs. It was all going to be automated. They couldn't have the DJs in there. So I think while I think it is kind of waiting, I think that, there's a lot of excitement around the station. And I think, we are going to have there's a few WUMR DJs that we will have on the station, and it's just going to be a great place to explore jazz and a lot of genres beyond. So
what we should talk about, I'm glad you reminded me of that. I mean, in COVID time, time has no meaning, and it's a good thing to mention that the station went dark. First question: when will the new rebranded, changed format station launch?
Yeah, we're early October. So yeah, that's our schedule right now.
And back to when I guess the first announcement of this was in October, November of last year, somewhere in that range. You were a consultant, full-time job at Archer Malmo and all that, but which we may get to later. But we had hoped to launch in the spring. It took longer, just the kind of the complications of an FCC license and where the tower is and just all the complications. So I think that made people nervous. And then the plan was to try to keep, do I remember this correctly? We were going to try to keep programming on the air, maybe go dark for a small period of time, not this extended period. And then that was really driven by COVID. I forgot that part.
Yeah, no, our plans were to keep it up until the end of the school year, let the sports continue and let the, the DJs continue. But, with COVID and everything shutting down at the university and the station, there were some legal things once it did transfer to the partnership in April that just didn't make sense to go through just for an automated station. So
right. The other point, I don't know why I'm focused on the negative, but I don't mean, I just want to kind
start negative and positive. That's good.
It's dark humor. Student involvement. That was a thing that a couple of people reached out to me. I think they reached out to you. And I'm curious, I don't know if Jared, you want to talk about this or Robby? I mean, what will U of M, while the license has been transferred from the U of M to the new nonprofit partnership, U of M is a very important partner. There will be a student coordinator who works for the U of M and coordinates really closely with you all in terms of student involvement. What will that student involvement look like?
Yeah, you go ahead, Jared.
Long term, what we'd like is to have a separate stream that is university focused. And I speak on the long term first, just because I think that'd be revolutionary to sort of have this platform that is bolstered by the community on FM, and then being able to have this project that is really, really based on giving student voices. Just an incredible amplification across this community. And that means a lot to me as someone who worked in college radio, and so many people have those fond memories of being able to do that and sort of shape who you are as a person and what your tastes are, and whether or not you end up in broadcast journalism or journalism at all or communications at all. From so many different walks of life have those fond memories. I know Chris Harrington talks about that a lot. So that's the long-term goal. In the short term, we'll be working with the student coordinator to find opportunities for students to be directly involved with the station. There's still slots open that could go to students. And we really want that to be something that U of M students are excited about. It's an opportunity to possibly get over to Crosstown and sort of be in an environment where you're working with other professionals. These are people who are volunteering, who occupy very specific roles in Memphis and the Mid-South already. And we have partners who are really excited to be able to do that. Kazukian and Larry Robinson, he's a part of helping us program Talk. And a big reason why he signed on to be a part of our Talk committee is because he wants to be able to work hands-on with students. So we have partners in the community who said yes to this experience because they knew they would get the opportunity to really sort of go ahead and start seeking out who will be those next leaders in Memphis and be in the trenches with them, so to speak.
Let me say too, again, for people maybe kind of familiar, but not totally. I mean, it'll primarily be a music station, as you both have said, a broader set of genres than before, but very much including jazz, not just Memphis music. I think that, which we can talk a little more about that in a little bit, but Talk, and we as Daily Memphian is a partner in it, and we are going to provide, like, this podcast is going to move over in a somewhat more arts and culture format, which is what I originally was trying to do, and then COVID blew that up. We think Jennifer Biggs, her food show is going to go over in a somewhat different format. You mentioned Chris Harrington. I think he's doing a music show, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And we'll do news updates and, some kind of news presence through the day that Natalie Van Gundy, who produces all our podcasts and Behind the Headlines, will be doing. But it won't exclusively be Daily Memphian. I mean, I remember saying that early on to Todd and to the people at U of M that if the only talk provider or news provider was Daily Memphian, it would fail because that's just not enough. It needs to speak to the whole community. And so obviously Larry at Kazuki, and they do, some people might be familiar with the Funky Politics podcast, which he's been nice enough to have me on a couple of times. And he does a jazz and wine podcast that I think has national syndication. That's interesting. And he has all kinds of really interesting things, more African-American oriented, more Black oriented, but other people as well. I don't know if you can talk to some of the other group about some of the other, because it's early, but you've reached out to other organizations in town that would be potentially providing talk news type programming to the station.
So what I would share is that Chip Washington, who has a Facebook show called Real Talk with Chip Washington, will be coming over with us. And we will be taking some of the programming that you mentioned that is a part of the suite of Kazukian talk programming. And also, as you mentioned, Natalie Van Gundy, who is producing the show as we speak right now, is a part of our talk committee along with Larry, and so is Toby Sells from Memphis Flyer. And so that will, for right now, that's what I'll disclose about who's involved. I think the fact that Toby is involved says that, we are open to some things outside of the Daily Memphian. And so I'll reveal exactly what that programming will look like, but those are some of the pieces that are in play.
Right.
Yeah. And then overall, like we've talked about, and I've mentioned before, it's, 80% music, 20% talk. And we're really trying to focus on arts and culture, across the board. So, we're getting the schedule filled up and we're getting excited about it.
So for people who, I'll do a break, but for people who are listening who want to maybe learn more, they can go to WYXR.org.
Yep.
They can sign up for updates. If they want to learn more about, proposing a show, whether it's talk oriented or it's music oriented, they should do what?
We've got a get involved page on WYXR.org, and that goes to a volunteer form. So on that page, there's a link to apply for a show as well. So we're looking for, getting a cache of volunteers that we can work with as we, open up and start needing more help. We've already used that. We've had a couple of great volunteers that helped us with the move. We moved a lot of the equipment from U of M. So that's one way to get involved. We also have a volunteer coordinator, Nancy Agee, that was with the Shell for years, and she's helping us out with that, which has been great. With shows, we've got a form there. It's the same form for music and for talk. And what Jared and I are doing is thinking about these in, I guess, cohorts or groups. So up until August 12th, we're still taking applications for this first cohort, but and then what we'll do is kind of close it, or we won't, the form won't be active for shows just because it's a lot to keep up with on a rolling schedule. So we're going to have a calendar out for when applications will be back open for that. So that's our plan right now.
Okay, let me take a second, but more questions on any number of those things, but and remind everyone that the Extra Podcast is one of many weekly podcasts we do at the Daily Memphian, including, as I mentioned, Jennifer Biggs' podcast on food. Bill Dries does one on politics. We do numerous sports podcasts, particularly as the Grizzlies come back and the Tigers come back. All of our podcasts are on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. And let me also do one more self-promotional thing. The Daily Memphian, our small business seminar is coming up in September. I think you can go to dailymemphian.com/seminars, learn more about that. It'll be a virtual event. Those who have been to our in-person event at Brooks, that is not possible or smart right now. So we'll be doing our first virtual event, which is funny because I started this before we were recording by saying how much I hate Zoom, but we'll be doing a bunch of different events through the fall. You mentioned Nancy. What a really involved partner and board member I am. I didn't know that she was doing the volunteer. Nancy was doing the volunteer coordination. And I mean, the Shell, we had, I just drew a blank, but the new head of the Shell on the show before COVID went.
Natalie.
Excuse me?
Natalie Wilson. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, Natalie Wilson. Ugh. And I mean, that's been essential. They would not exist and thrive the way they had, even though it's a challenging environment for them and everyone right now with COVID going on, without volunteers. And so all the DJs, just to be clear, all the DJs, based 99.9% of the DJs will be free volunteers, unpaid. We're not being paid, Daily Memphian is not. The other talk and news providers will not be paid. I mean, it's truly volunteer community radio in that sense.
Yeah, correct. It's just a small staff, me, Jared, and Shelby McCall, who's our operations coordinator. So just the three of us, and everyone else is volunteers.
You talked about the move to Crosstown. So those folks who have been in Crosstown, particularly, you can get in Crosstown now, but it's a little bit, in normal times. OAM, Podcast Network, moved across the street to the original Crosstown Arts, one of their spaces over there. And so the studio, there's paper up on the glass. People maybe, seen people recording in there. It's being redesigned. When will that be revealed? In the next couple of weeks?
We probably are going to wait. We're the construction is complete. We took that space and split it up into two studios, a small production studio and then a larger control room. And then just based on the fact that we put up two walls, there's actually an entryway too that we're calling the lounge. So that's complete. We're working on, again, this early October launch. And so leading up to that, we'll try to figure out when we're going to tear down the paper and make a big deal about it. I mean, when we first started talking about this, over a year ago, obviously we envisioned a much different like big, ribbon cutting. So we're still working through those details, but it's going to be cool. I mean, the space will be transformed. We've got some really cool graphics going up this week. We've got some, cool furniture, and it's going to be a fishbowl. So a lot of the DJs will be able to kind of, once more people are in Crosstown, which, I mean, there's a few in there now, they'll be able to feed off the energy in the atrium, and people be able to take a look at that way.
Will you be doing, can you safely do DJs in the studio in October? Let's assume things are status quo. I mean, October seems like a lifetime away when it comes to COVID, but let's say it's just status quo. We're about where we are, mask ordinance cases kind of where they are. Will DJs be able to come into the studio?
Yeah, we'll definitely have DJs in the studio. I mean, Jared and I are working on what the specifics of that'll be like. I mean, whether they alternate, some will be pre-recorded, so we're thinking about that. You were going to say something, Jared?
Well, actually, a lot of our DJs have other means to record and want to pre-record, and there's a lot of variance in age and all these sorts of things. So of course we want to be careful getting into that space, and we want precautions. And so, sort of taking stock of who really needs to be in that space, and also who has the means to be able to produce a quality show without being in that space. And of course, I mentioned again, Kazukian has sort of offered space as another satellite, and there's some other areas that we can utilize. And so, we want to take the precautions and take things as slowly as possible. And the other thing is, with it being a fishbowl, we don't necessarily want to have a reason for a bunch of people to congregate outside of that glass and look right away. I don't want to encourage people to hurry up and be standing outside and huddle up against that glass just yet.
It's a good point.
In the right time.
A sad but good point.
Yeah.
We mentioned, again, U of M is a partner. Ann Hogan, who's the dean of the School of Communication, Art and Communication, has been essential to this. Is a board member. Todd Richardson from Crosstown is a board member, board chair, I think. Pat Mitchell-Worley from both Beale Street Caravan. She's a longtime host, and we'll get to that with you, Jared, but also is over at Stax, Soulsville Academy. And then Casey Shannon is our lawyer or whatever. He's a board member. No, he has a great legacy and connection to music. Has been a great board member. But in terms of, in normal times, whenever we get back to normal times, we've talked a lot about the potential of broadcasting live events or rebroadcasting live events. And that could be, something like the Green Room or the theater here at Crosstown. And I'm in Crosstown right now. But that could also be other places, right? I mean, there are a lot of live music going on over at the Stax Museum. I mean, potentially that could be plugged in. I mean, have those conversations just been put on hold since there isn't a whole lot of live music happening, or what's the
Yeah, as part of this whole setup, we are connecting. I could get all nerdy and techie on you, but I'll just keep it high level. I mean, we've got multi-track connections to both the Crosstown Theater and the Green Room. So once our shows going full throttle, we'll be able to kind of work on getting those broadcast either live or simulcast. I mean, maybe once we're up and running, we can do some stuff prior to being full, maybe just to augment some of these other live streams that are going on. U of M is building their Rudy Scheidt music building. So we'll definitely be doing, if not live, definitely simulcast stuff from there. I could totally see Stax. I mean, where else, Jared? I mean, there's a ton of other places that we can pull in content.
Well, the thing, as you mentioned, Eric, with the Beale Street Caravan is we hope that the caravan will be on with us, and we've had conversations about that, and the answers thus far have been yes. It's sort of filling in all the live here in the flesh DJs and programmers that want to be in spaces, and then we'll find out where that fits. But we've also had some other people offer up archival concert audio and those sorts of things. So, it'll be an interesting opportunity. Necessity will sort of provide us with the opportunity to be creative and find content from Memphis's past that we can share with people. And I think without the ability to go out and see a lot of concerts and live performances right now, we hope to be a hub for people to interact with a lot of these personalities in music who many of them just don't have the opportunity to share right now, but some of them actually, may have already passed on. To be honest with you, there have been some conversations that we've had about some beautiful archival interviews and that sort of thing. And so I just can't wait to share a lot of that.
I've had the question, are you gonna continue to work with, WKNO doing the behind the headlines over there, which I am, and then there's a podcast of that, and a radio version of that, and but how will WYXR live and work with other stations? I mean, I can say with KNO because I don't work there, but I do my show there and all that. YXR is not going to have NPR broadcasts. It's not going to have Morning Edition. It's not going to have classical in the sense that there's really a space for those two to coexist. The one that you've been very involved, Robby, with Weevil over the years. And were you, maybe were a board member, or I know you were very involved. Okay. Very involved. I mean, is there room in Memphis for YXR and Weevil to coexist?
I mean, I definitely think so. I mean, I grew up, loving Weevil and still love Weevil. I think what sets us apart is, we've got a talk component. We're also going to be really dynamic with our programmers too. And I mean, while we'll have a set group of programmers, we're gonna be playing a lot with the schedule over the years, and especially here at the beginning. And we talked about Beale Street Caravan, but other than that, we're not really looking for a lot of national syndicated shows. So we want to try to, we want to create some of those shows. So, I think, and I think there's room. I mean, you look at, you would have asked somebody, 5 years ago, there's only one brewery in town, and then all of a sudden there's 10 breweries in town, and they're all seem to be doing really well. I mean, you look at like Shangri-La, Goner, you've got there's room for both. And I think, how we play off each other and how it works out. I mean, we're not live yet, remains to be seen, right. But, we're open and want to work with the other stations in town, and we're not approaching it as a competition, especially not other non-commercial stations. I mean, we're here to support each other, hopefully. So.
Well, I would say, when I was a kid, my pastor, Dr. Frank Anthony Thomas, would say, kids have these blinders on, and that's the only way that you can get them to run forward, so they can run their own race. And so that's always been my thing, is to run my own race, and so WYXR, for me, it's just it's a moment in time right now to really just do something new and fresh and cool and nail it and really make it in the vision of not only, you know, Robby and me or the board, but Memphis. And so there's so many different ways that you can address that and to tackle that. And so I just, you know, as a program manager, really wanted to reach out to people who I've seen over the years who I thought, why the hell isn't that person on commercial radio? And if I can help them develop their voice for 6 months, and then they go on and they work for a K97 or WDIA or an FM 100 or wherever, that makes me happy. You know, it's not to keep the talent, it's to find it. And, you know, that's why the university is such a great pool of talent. There's people who may not have had anyone to tell them before, hey, you can really make this huge difference in Memphis, and here's a playground to do so.
One other thing we've kind of touched on, but I wanted to come back to, I think maybe this is for you, Jared, or maybe both of you, is one thing that got lost with UMR going dark and this change in format was some of the sports broadcasting that they did, and it tended to be, you know, maybe like not basketball and not football, not the big ones, right? So it tended to be a little bit more of the women's sports, maybe, you know, I think there was a baseball, I think maybe softball. Is that going back to what you said earlier with the second stream, is that's both an opportunity for sports that don't get all the attention, often women's sports, to get some broadcast attention. And it's a chance for kids who want to get into radio to do some play-by-play and some commentary. There won't be, we had made a decision, there's not going to be sports, you know, talk. There's plenty of sports talk in Memphis. There's not going to be, you know, talk about the Grizzlies or talk about the Tigers basketball or football or SEC sports. Plenty of that already. But on that second stream you talked about, is there a potential for those kind of sports simulcasts, or is that off the table?
I mean, that's where we want that, and where that will live. I mean, we've the instructional coordinator they've hired, I don't think I can announce it yet who it is, but is a great hire. And so they start in mid August. And so we'll work with them to have this. We call on our stream the FM community stream, the one Jared and I have been talking about, and not the university stream. So you know, that'll be their purview to program that, but sports will be part of that. And when we were interviewing the instructional coordinator, we talked about that in particular. So yeah, and so that, yes, that'll have a big piece there. And so that the overall kind of makeup of that stream is still up in the air, and probably be, I'm thinking into 2020, maybe early 2021 when that will launch. Just this person needs to get, we got to launch this up, the community stream and FM stream, and then have this, you know, the coordinator get in place, and we'll work from there.
Question, just we'll wrap up here in a minute, but one quick question: funding. How will the station, which again, although U of M is a partner and U of M is providing a certain amount of funding, I think for the instructional coordinator and so on, it's on the partnership, the new nonprofit, the new 501c3. What's it called? Crosstown Radio Partnership Inc. I think technically. How will all this be funded?
Well, we've got donations. We're going to start asking for donations for sure. I mean, we'll probably not this year, but starting next year, we'll have pledge drives, kind of like your typical non-commercial radio stations. We're looking at grants. I'm working with some other board members. We're working through some grants that are available for non-commercial stations, and, you know, underwriting. So we really, you know, in addition to DJs having their voice, we want to make it, a way for other businesses to get involved. I mean, with non-commercial, there's some rules around how you can, you know, promote your business. But for those that are, community conscious, we want to get them involved and get them excited about it as well.
I don't think I'll be able to say go to dailymemphian.com and subscribe. I think those words will have to stop when this goes over to WYXR. And then just briefly, your backgrounds for people who don't know. You Robby, are not just an executive director. You're a musician. You've been in music in many different ways for your whole life, right?
Yeah, I've lived Memphis, basically my whole life. Played music, toured all through the 90s with a big ass truck band. Then kind of had some kids and went into advertising and marketing. So I was at Archer Malma doing technology for about 20 years. So that was a kind of an exciting, this is an exciting kind of, coming together of all the music and the technology for me, because, FM and radio is super important to me, but figuring out ways to get this content out in other ways than just your traditional, radio stuff is what interests me. And then, recently I did a big project called the Mellotron Variations, which was connected with Crosstown, and kind of got me, talking to those folks over there. So that's how I got involved with that. And, still trying to play music. It's kind of hard to do it these days, except sitting up here in this room, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. And Jared, your background in music, I mean, obviously people maybe hopefully, know you from Daily Memphian, where you've been doing some arts and culture, but also just general assignment, all kinds. When you move back, you're from Memphis, you moved back for the job at the Daily Memphian, right? What, a year,
right, yeah.
year plus ago?
Yeah, I'm from Memphis, born and raised, and went to the University of Mississippi, and interned at the Commercial Appeal after that, and landed in Mobile, Alabama, writing for AL.com, and bounced around AL.com between, chasing ambulances and around on the murder scenes and going to trials and all sorts of, political press conferences and, all that sort of stuff that you do when you're grinding as a daily news reporter in a town like that. You sort of have to be a one-man band, every man kind of thing. And, even there, people knew that I really wanted to be a writer who wrote about music particularly, but arts and culture. And so I kind of dipped into food writing a bit throughout the entire state. And, long story short, just, was offered by the Bill Street Caravan to come back home and be on that show. And I said, I don't think that's going to be enough. And so, we kept those talks up. And, the Daily Memphian, when that announcement came, I knew that's where I wanted to be. And the stars aligned. And so I was able to come back and do both and be on the Caravan and write the Caravan. I write the Caravan and produce it. And also have been able to work as a general assignment reporter for the Daily Memphian, and I'm grateful that I've been able to carve that into writing about just the beautiful heritage and history of Memphis music and culture. And somehow landed a gig DJing down at Central Station when that opened. When word got out that there was a weirdo guy hanging out with a bunch of records all the time, asking people questions about things that happened in the 70s. When that project started to straw up, I got the call that they might be interested in me coming out and playing some records. And so I did that. And so it's been a fun journey to be involved in Memphis and be embraced. And so much has happened in just a year and a half. I really feel like it couldn't be a better place and a better time to be in Memphis and to be loved on by Memphis. And so I try to project all that love back.
And we have been tremendously happy to have you, and glad that we're going to work out some form or fashion to continue to have some presence, some toe, foot, finger in the Daily Memphian as you segue into this, which, I've told the story before, I'll tell it again. When we started, the radio station started advertising, talking about a program manager, and this was before COVID, you came up to me in I think here at Crosstown, down at French Truck, and you started talking, and you were kind of talking, and you were dancing around, and I was like, Jared, you want to apply for a job at the radio station? And I would hate to lose you, but you're a natural for this, and I was glad you did, and I feel like it's a double win for all of us, and also for Memphis to have you back and have you doing this stuff. So we are way over time, but it's a podcast, so who cares? But once it's radio, I'll have to be more disciplined about time. Thanks, both of y'all.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. People can go to WYXR.org, sign up for updates. They can donate money. They can kind of learn a little bit more about shows and programming and the work in progress that is. And again, as you said, Robby, looking towards a hopefully early October launch for this. But thank you both for joining by Zoom. I appreciate it. And that is all the time we have today. Thank you all for joining us. Be sure to subscribe while I can still say this, because it's a podcast, not on public radio. Subscribe to the Daily Memphian on the site for unlimited articles. You can follow me on Twitter at ericbarnes.2, or follow the Daily Memphian at Daily Memphian. Subscribe to this weekly podcast or the other Daily Memphian podcast. We also have the Behind the Headlines podcast on there, as well as shows on politics, food, sports, much more. They're on the site or on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for joining us.